And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. With me, I have Beth from Made for TV Movie Podcast, and we're going to be doing our Secret of My Success, starring Michael J. Fox. So, let's further ado, let's go ahead and get on with the show. Hey, Beth, how are you been doing?
Hi, John. How are you? Thank you for having me back. It's our third Michael J. Fox movie.
Right? We're on a roll with these 80s and 90s movies of
I
Michael J. Fox, right?
I love talking about Michael J. Fox and the 80s.
Same here as well, and it's always a pleasure to be able to talk about Michael J. Fox's films with you. So, I definitely love this film just as much as Teen Wolf and the other ones that we did. What about you?
I love this movie, and I should say that so this movie came out like 2 months before I graduated high school. I saw this movie on a date. I loved it. It's such a good movie, and I just really enjoyed it again when I watched it again. But I forgot how good the music was. That the soundtrack for this film was. I mean, I remembered Katrina and the Waves, of course, Walking on Sunshine, but I forgot about the other songs. So I was like pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. The one that stood out to me was Always Walking on Sunshine, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah. And I think that was the big breakout hit of this movie is from what I remember. I mean, I remember it just being all over the airwaves and this was back when MTV had music videos, so they played it all the time and I love the video too, but I think it really encapsulates sort of the feeling of this film altogether.
Oh, most definitely, because you have Michael J. Fox as a fish out of water who winds up coming home. Well, not coming home, but he winds up leaving Kansas to do something with himself as a career opportunity, and he wants the very best for his family. Of course, they're also farmers and things like that. So he's like a fish out of water. It's his first time experiencing anything in the big city. So that's basically the plot of it, and of this movie is basically Michael J. Fox is actually trying to go into the corporate world, trying to go into stocks and bonds and things like that. And then, of course, every company he goes to is going under fire, basically, too. That's also another thing on how hard it was for him to actually get a job.
Yeah, which is sort of interesting because when they open the movie and you see how many people are working on, I mean, I'm assuming they were on Wall Street, and how many people you see, and it's like, wow, he had such a hard time finding this job. And when you consider how many people are working in these jobs all the time, but I also have to note that it's kind of the opposite of Doc Hollywood, right? Where Doc Hollywood leaves a big city to go to a big city and ends up in a small town, and then in this movie, he leaves the small town to go to the big city.
Exactly. And that's exactly how Doc Hollywood was, except for one thing. He actually broke down instead of having to go into the corporate world. You know what I mean?
It's true. And he had a really cool car.
But yeah, and then Rossie says, "Hey guys, I like the movie. Caught it when it first came on. Yeah, I caught this back whenever I was young. My mom and I were watching TV, and there was happens to be a Michael J. Fox movie that was coming on. So she's like, well, let's go ahead and give this a shot. I'm like, okay. Next thing you know, I wounded up loving it to the point where I winded up recording it on the VHS tapes. In case anybody doesn't know that was before the digital age. But it's such a good movie, though, to me. It's one of those movies where it makes you believe that you can do anything that you want to do if you go ahead and apply yourself to.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. And I think that might be kind of the message of the movie. And one of the things I really love about the movies that Michael J. Fox has historically chosen to be in, especially in the 80s and the comedies, were just like had messages like that where you can aspire and go after what you want. And I mean, obviously he might have done it maybe not the most straightforward way, but that's kind of what made the movie so fun. And Michael J. Fox, he's such a light actor. I don't want to say light, that's not really fair, but he just really kind of he just does such a good job when he does these comedies because his he's right on pace and he's got great comedic timing, which he probably learned from on his TV show. But there's a lightness about him, I think, that makes these movies so fun. And this movie, I mean, it was kind of weird, with Aunt Vera and that kind of thing. And, the two love interests are having affairs kind of with married people. And that's sort of weird, maybe, but I didn't care. To me,
I didn't care either.
No,
And the
I
funny thing is, this makes like the second movie I reviewed that it was about with incest in it. And I could just even go, all my viewers, all my uh, audience is like, okay, here we go again with the incest. Look, it was the 80s, okay? And Farrah, he did. Here's the thing: Bradley was innocent because he didn't know that that was happens to be his aunt.
yes.
So when he finds out that was his aunt, and then when, of course, his uncle arrives after they got done going in, basically they wind up having sex and stuff like that. And then once he finds out, oh, you're my aunt, he goes, wait. And then he looks out the window, looks back at his aunt. I just live with my aunt Vera. And she goes, Auntie Vera, I'm your aunt. So, but the thing about Michael J. Fox is about how quick that he is on his feet and how quickly he thinks of different things, though, too.
Yes.
And that's what I like about him is his energy level is amped up in this one compared to Doc Holliday. In this one, in the mailroom, especially in the mailroom, whenever he winds up being introduced to everybody in the mailroom and stuff like that, and he knows what he wants. He knows what he wants to go after, but it's hard to actually go after it. And then, especially in the mailroom too, where you wind up meeting one of his friends, that happens to be one of his friends now in the movie. And he goes, "Who's that?" "Oh, that's a suit. You don't talk to the suits." He goes, "Why? I'm a person. That person's a person. We put on our jeans the same way. So what's the point? Why do I have to just ignore the fact that ignore them?" So that was something else that was really different that he wasn't used to in Kansas. He's used to
Yeah.
just talking to anybody and
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, I mean, because that's obvious, like right away when he's walking around and the guy's saying, "Don't talk to the suits," and he says hi to everybody. And everybody really likes him too. They seem to all like him, and people say hi back. Um, but you're right. You make such a good point about his energy. And in this movie, I mean, he really, if you think about it, he's moving almost the entire movie. I mean, there's not a lot of scenes where he's just sitting still because he's pushing in the mailroom. There's a lot of physical comedy too, where he's changing clothes and he's got clothes like underneath the couch cushion, and here he's changing it in the elevator and stopping it and all that stuff. I mean, he's moving so much, and I love it because he's so your energy is the perfect word to describe him in this film.
It definitely is because I never seen Michael J. Fox have this much energy, even in Back to the Future and things like that. He's
Mm-mm.
basically my favorite part though is too with the manager from the mailroom. He's trying to chase him down, and he's trying to hit on the girl that he has a crush on, and things like that. And all of a sudden, you wind up seeing that one part where he goes, "Oh, you're still here? What are you doing still here for?" It's looking beautiful, by the way. Next thing you know, he starts running back down the stairs, and then and then he sees his friend again. He goes, "Oh, you never see me here. And you don't know who I am." And then his boss comes around and goes, "Have you seen him?" He goes, "I don't know who he is, and I haven't seen him." So then he winds up tripping him with the hose and everything and stuff like that. So I liked how they played off the narrative with that. But
Yeah.
another thing too is that's very different with his Kansas life compared to New York City life is whenever he's talking on the phone with his mom.
Yeah.
And and then all of a sudden, you hear someone getting robbed, you hear the police sirens, you hear
The
and he
shootout.
goes, right, the whole shootout with the robbery that's being taken place. And his mom's like, what's that? Oh, that's Miami Vice. Someone just got shot. Because what, can you turn it down? I can't really do that. Look, I gotta go. But he can't really tell her, look, I don't have a job and I don't really have a secretary. I moved out here hoping that I would get hired, but then the company that I was gonna work for went under. Then no one would hire me. So then now he has to go with his uncle, which was like a last resort in a sense, because now he basically did a handout to him. But at the same time, it's a crap hand of the deal, though, if you think about it, working for his uncle.
Yeah. But I mean, even though he got a job from his uncle, he still started in like, he didn't start like in a junior executive position or
No,
anything. So even though he kind of walked in and he actually talked himself into the job, because that guy, Uncle Howard, wasn't going to be like, "Yeah, I'll give you a job just because we're," and of course they made the big deal at the beginning to say by marriage, I think, so that the whole Aunt Vera thing wasn't super creepy. Um, but I, I like that he kind of walked in and talked himself into the job, and he wasn't given any special favors, and then he just kind of took control. It, it was kind of funny though, because there's some things that when he was like trying to figure out how to save the company, it's like, I don't don't think you would have figured all that out just from stuff from the mailroom, but I loved it anyway. I didn't care.
Right, because it's supposed to be all in the file system within that company itself. And so, you can think of different documents and things like that. I'm like, okay, this movie is not believable to the point where you can get all this information, because this is also past tense stuff that other people probably lost their jobs or whatever. And he's just having to collect everything. But it's the 80s, so therefore you have to go with it because it's the 80s.
Yeah, it's almost such a typical sort of, I don't know, like setup for the 80s comedies. Is that kind of thing, but like not super believable, but just believable enough. If you don't know anything about business, you might kind of believe it, but none of it matters because it's, the ending is so good. And even like you're thinking the whole time, okay, so his boss in the mailroom is kind of a jerk. He's going to get his comeuppance, but he doesn't. He ends up like getting a job in the end, right? You know what I mean? He's still there. I love that because he was driving the limo.
Yeah, that's something else I want to mention is the limo part, because if we wind up having a little bit of a memory lane with Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because it has that "Oh Yeah" song being played whenever he tells Aunt Vera. At that time, he doesn't know that's Aunt Vera, by the way, to our audience is wondering. But he doesn't know that that's his Aunt Vera or anything. He goes, well, if I had a beautiful woman laying next to me all night and everything, I would do anything for you. You're beautiful. Next thing you know, that just sparked something in her where, oh, okay, so this person's taking a notice to me opposed to my douchebag, ball-bag husband. So I'm going to go on ahead and see what I can do for this guy in the mailroom. So she winds up taking her lipstick, she winds up taking her shoes off and everything, and then we wind up hearing that song with the "Oh Yeah."
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think that was this. I think that Ferris Bueller came out the same year, so it's super strange that they both sampled the same song throughout. And I didn't remember that. I mean, I haven't seen this movie. Doesn't really play on like reruns on cable or anything, or at least it hasn't recently. So I'm not sure the last time I've seen it. It's been at least 10 years, if not longer. So I forgot about that until I was watching it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. This is from Ferris Bueller.
Right, because that's, for some reason or another, that theme song always stuck with me in the 80s and stuff like that, too,
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't remember. I just didn't remember it in this particular movie. But like I said, it's been quite a while since I had seen it. I was trying to remember exactly when. But the other thing I wanted to mention, too, was I forgot that Jean. As soon as I saw Jean, I was like, "Oh gosh, that's so the woman who plays Jean, the secretary, played Howard's mom on Big Bang Theory. Well, the voice of. We never saw Howard's mom in the show, but it was her that played the voice of Howard's mom."
Really? I didn't even know that, to be honest with you.
I knew that because I recognized it immediately. I recognized her voice and I'm like, is that the actress? And then of course I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, see, I was right. I don't know, like, I think it was just hearing her voice that made me think of it because I didn't recognize her name like in the credits or anything. So when I looked it up, I was like, oh, yep, it was her. So she
That's
also
crazy.
Yeah, and she also was on an episode of Seinfeld where George was dating her because he was trying to get like his unemployment extended or something.
Yeah, I remember that episode.
So she was in that episode as well, for those of you who are big Seinfeld fans like myself.
See, I didn't even know that she was in Seinfeld. I didn't know that she was in this movie at all because I didn't recognize the voice. So now I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to that.
Yeah, I mean, her voice on Big Bang Theory is so distinctive that when I was watching that Seinfeld episode, I'm like, that sounds like Howard's mom. So I looked it up. I mean, I didn't recognize it right away or immediately or anything like. I mean, I recognize it, but I couldn't figure out where it was from. So that's how I remembered it. But then when I saw her, I was like, oh, she looks like, because it was about the same. I mean, there's probably a 5-year difference between that movie and when that Seinfeld episode came out, because I'm pretty sure that would have been early 90s. I think it was probably in the first few seasons of the show.
Right. And, another thing that I want to bring up is I like the part where he keeps on taking his clothes off and things like that inside the elevator. I thought that was hilarious, especially when, he keeps on, of course, he has to keep on changing out of his clothes because of the fact that he works in the mailroom, and then there's actually 2 different dress codes. So we stop in the elevator, and then there was also that one part where the guy the mechanic who's actually working on the elevator. She's like, again with these damn elevators.
I know.
So
I love that running joke because it was throughout the entire movie.
you know what though? Usually jokes get too repetitive sometimes for me. I'm like, okay, I get it, but it's the way they do it and the delivery of how they do it. Anything
Yeah.
can be funny. It's just the way that you deliver it.
Right. Especially if you're going to keep bringing it back around, you really have to make it clever or unexpected or do something with it. And I think that, and just kind of having that elevator, the guy who's trying to fix the elevator was kind of funny too, because, it just was like, there he is again, working on the elevator, as Michael J. Fox's character, as Brantley's like changing his clothes again. But I like the running gag of him having to change his clothes all the time too. That didn't seem to get old to me either. I didn't think it was like, oh, they should cut that down to just one or two scenes. I thought it was funny every time, especially when he had him shoved up under his cushion in his couch in his office. I just thought it was funny.
They always had some way of doing something different. That's something that I really liked about it, especially whenever, he said, hey, Gene, go on ahead and wash these pants for me. And it throws her like that was actually like that was planned out from the get-go. Oh, I forgot to give you my pants, so here you go. I have a change in my briefcase.
Yeah, and she's just like, okay. I thought that was hilarious. I don't know why I'm laughing. I just thought her lines were so funny the whole way through. She just had some of the best lines in the movie because she didn't have a huge amount of lines, but they were funny. Like when you compare to other characters. And I don't know if you noticed this either, but the actor who played Herman Munster was in the movie too.
That's right. I was thinking that too. I was like, is that Herman Monster? Because I remember hearing that distinct voice because that was the one that I actually picked up on was Herman Monster.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and his voice is the same. The reason I actually recognized him is I'm sure you've seen the original Pet Sematary. He was in it, and I knew that that was Herman Munster from that movie, so I remembered what he looked like because he doesn't wear any obviously makeup in Pet Sematary either, which the original is a great film if you have not seen it.
Exactly, and I love the original of the Pet Sematary movie. I thought that he was fantastic with that as the caretaker for the Pet Sematary.
He was. I mean, it was such a good movie, and he did such a good job, and it was so like out of the realm of what you expect too, because he played Herman Munster, right? So that's sort of his place in pop culture, and by the 80s, that was really his place. So when he did other things, it was kind of fun to see him in, so that's why I love Pet Sematary. I just think I have not seen the remake, but I thought the first one was so good, and it was nice to see him, and even though it wasn't a big part.
Right, I've seen the remake of it. It was okay. It's not the worst remake I've seen. I've seen plenty of worse ones. But, definitely his presence is actually missed. The original casting for Pet Sematary is like really missed.
It was.
But, you know what, though? You don't even expect him to show up in some cameo appearances. Whenever he's there, it's like he overshadows everybody.
Yeah.
And even Michael J. Fox.
Yeah. Too. He does. I mean, he has a huge presence. I mean, I think physically he's a very large man, but he just has a really big presence, like personality wise. And I like that. I was like, it was fun to see that. There was a lot of, I mean, I think the casting in this movie was so good. I think they did a really good job casting it. And the woman who played Helen, I mean, Christy, Helen Slater, she also, I remembered her from, do you watch the TV show Supernatural?
No, but I heard good things about it.
She was in only one episode, but a very memorable episode called, I think it was called Human Remains. And it was, the two brothers went to fight a ghost in what they thought was an abandoned house. It turns out another family had moved in, so they're trying to keep this family safe without telling them why they're there. And it's really one of the best episodes of Supernatural, which is why I remembered her from it. But she looks really different because there's big age difference between, because this would have came out probably in 2005, 2006.
Yeah, we're talking about at least 30 years after.
Yeah. She ditched the hair from the 80s. That feather, the
right.
Clearly influenced by Princess Diana, was gone by the time she did Supernatural.
I was hoping that it would be in a sense because, it needs to be done in modern times. But, but as long as you can recognize her, that's all that I care about, though, too.
Right. And then, you know what? I got to tell you, feathering the hair in the 80s was not as easy as you think it would be.
I can imagine the hours that it would take for that.
Well, there was a lot less product available to us girls back then.
But and here's another thing though too is I like how even whenever Howard is basically wanting Christy to go ahead and cheat on, well, basically spy on Bradley, which is
Yeah.
supposed to be another person that he's supposed to be playing as. But he winds up getting her to spy on him, and then at the same time, you're also having an affair. You're doing all this stuff, and you're also basically corrupting the company, trying to get people to fire and get rid of other people without having to try other avenues like expanding.
Yeah.
And I definitely like how Bradley winds up telling them, hey, look, you need to expand the company in order to not lay off anybody. So it has a little bit of seriousness to it because of the fact that, you're looking at other people's jobs and how corporations look at it as a person just with a number rather than just knowing, hey, look, these are people that actually have feelings. They have families. But that's just a little bit of seriousness to the film that they try to touch on.
Yeah, and I think that that Michael J. Fox's character Brantley, I think he really, or I guess AKA Whitfield, I think I think that they did a nice job of having his character balance that in the writing, because you're right, and especially in that late 80s time period, there was a little bit of a recession going on, so people were losing their jobs. There was a lot of changes in the way that the economy in the United States, but I mean, it also kind of had that little guy against the big guy that was kind of a thing in the 80s comedies where you see, like, you know, little guy against the big, gonna be the hero, and he was, and I loved that. But that was such a great theme that you don't really see a lot as much of in today's films, where he's gonna come in and save the company, and he does it.
Right. Nowadays, is most movies are depressing. It pretty much is no light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. No one's trying to fight for the better good. It's just either that person is just as bad as that person is, or there's some lightheartedness to that person, but not enough to actually believe that this person is going to come in and save everybody. But
Right.
Bradley, you actually know his motivations.
Yeah, true. And I mean, and he's, I mean, except for accidentally having an affair with his aunt, is in general a really good person and with a lot of morals. So I appreciated that, and I liked it, and it kind of really made me miss 80s comedies, just because I just love some of that, like little guy against the big guy, or big government, or back then, you've seen enough 80s movies to know, like, against big government or Russia or whoever the bad guy was, there was like this really good kind of person who was going to just come in and change and make things better, and it just kind of makes you feel better. It was a pretty feel good film. I mean, I think if they were to remake it, there'd be things they'd have to cut today, and then, like, the phone booth scene wouldn't have happened.
No, there would be something different. Like that scene would probably just be somebody just randomly talking on their cell phone to their mom, and basically someone running out with some money, and then all of a sudden you hear the cops running after them.
Yeah, or
That
some
would
kind
be
of inside shootout or something like that.
right. I could
And
actually see that. I could
yeah,
see that happening.
yeah, and I probably think they wouldn't have him have an affair with his aunt by
Yeah, I don't
marriage.
think. Yeah, I don't think the Aunt Vera thing would actually work. I think maybe the boss's wife or something like that would be more believable than have Aunt Vera, because I think it was a little too risque in the 80s anyways to
Yeah, yeah.
have that.
And I think that, I mean, the actress who played her did a really good job. I mean, I think that that could have been a really stereotypical flat character, but it wasn't. I mean, you kind of didn't hate her, or, you're kind of also rooting for her. And, and when the movie ended, you're kind of like, yay, yay, Aunt Vera. I don't know.
Exactly, because Aunt Vera.
Uh-oh, we lost John. He'll be back, I'm sure. I think. In the meantime, I'm taking over his show. So,
Yeah,
oh,
but
darn, you came back. I was going to take
yeah.
over.
But no, what I was going to say was this. The thing about Aunt Vera that I liked about her character was this. She was there for Bradley. She was rooting for Bradley the whole entire time. And then
Yeah.
whenever they go on him buy the shares from the company from right from underneath his uncle, and becomes
I
part
love that.
ownership, it rips off the rug from under him where he doesn't expect it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so I'm no longer this big person in charge like I thought I was. I'm not as
Yeah.
big as I was. And that's
Yeah.
something that he needed to be. He needed to be knocked down a couple of levels.
Right.
But
And they in order to do that, they had to make him be a pretty bad guy. So he couldn't run a company. He couldn't have a successful marriage. He's cheating on his wife many times, according to her. And, and she just kind of took it all in stride. And I like that. I think it really could have fallen flat with the kind of stereotypical, like, he gives her a compliment and suddenly she's like this, horny woman kind of chasing him down, forcing herself on him thing. But it didn't the way she approached the role, it didn't come off like that at all.
well, it only happened in maybe one other scene where it came off like that. Where Bradley's on the couch
Yeah,
in his office,
in
and
his
his uncle
office.
busts them,
Yeah,
and so she goes, and she winds up saying something to him, and then she goes, "Well, let me help you with that," and then then of course that's when the uncle comes in and everything and catches them. And so after that one part, that's when that pretty much ended that. So
yeah,
I really do appreciate the fact that you did it with two scenes. You did it in the beach house, and then you also did it inside the office. And then after that, they left it alone. But then she also does come over to his apartment saying that she has EMS, saying that he heard her call through her head. But they don't do anything. But it's just them talking, and so they just talk about the business side of it and how she wants to help them basically.
yeah. Yes, exactly. And I really appreciate that. One thing we forgot to talk about though was the scene in his apartment with the neighbors having sex. And he's orchestrating it like he's like doing the conducting, and that was so funny. It was so stupid. It was funny.
Oh, don't forget the beer. He also had beer in his hand though too when he was conducting. He goes, "Yeah, you guys were beautiful tonight too. Thank you." And then,
I just thought it was so dumb, but it was funny.
it worked
Uh,
though. I mean,
it
it
did.
worked for that particular scene. But I was also thinking to myself when him and Chrissy was making love, I'm like, are these people banging
Yeah, are they
in
doing the
the
same thing on the other side?
right? Because you don't hear, because of course you have like the background music and stuff like that. But I can't help but wonder: are they still going at it, or what's going on with the couple next door? But that's just. But still, I think that the jokes in this movie just lands, and it's
Yeah.
not. And like I said, you can do anything that you can with the jokes and stuff like that to where they're not repetitive and they become original.
Yes.
And
In fact, I wrote one down that I really like. Now I have to see if I can find it. Oh, dang it. Now I can't find it. Darn. It was funny. Shoot. Oh well. Darn. There was some really funny she said, and then I wrote it down. Now I can't find it.
it's okay.
Vera said,
But remember the other thing whenever his uncle's coming home and just okay. Remember that one scene where the uncle is coming home? Okay.
"All right, we lost you for a second there. Oh, I think we lost you again. No, now you're back. Oh, there we are. Oh, here he is. Yay, he's back."
What I was going to say was this: remember that one scene where the uncle is coming back, and basically they're in the pool house, and he said, "Why is the male guy? Why is the limo driver here?" Still, oh, he broke down. He goes, "No, he's not. He's having trouble with his fly." And she winds up saying, "No, let me go in and help you with that." "No, get away from me." So he winds up jumping off the porch and stuff like that. And of course, Aunt Vera is covered up. But I thought that scene was actually classic Michael J. Fox in
Yeah.
the 80s right there.
And I thought it was really good, a really good showing of like how good his physical humor is too. But I was like, I wonder how he got home because
I
they
was
never
thinking that.
showed it. He
Well, I
couldn't have
was thinking
taken the
that.
car because
Yeah, I think
he
he
said
might
it
have.
was broken down.
Well, either way it goes, I think that his uncle would actually know that his wife is actually cheating too. So that wouldn't surprise me if he did take it home or anything like that too.
Yeah.
So he probably took it back to the company. I wouldn't be surprised, or his uncle did.
Yeah, I mean, but she said it was broken down, so but I mean, he had to have done something because they were out in the country, so how else would he have gotten home to back? But I just that was the first thing I thought was, how did he get home? I don't because I didn't remember like that scene. I mean, like I don't know. I didn't remember that, so I was like, "Oh, okay." It didn't matter to the plot. I just thought of it. But I
Right.
agree. I think that the physical, just the physicality of that scene where he's trying to get dressed and he's jumping up and down to get his pants on and jumping over the gate the fence or the whatever you want to call it. I thought it was so you're right. It was like really just great physical humor.
Definitely was. And then, then you wind up having the party scene at his uncle's house was also funny.
Yeah. When he's like, I heard you were with Whitfield." She's like,
And
"Oh, I think I saw him a few minutes ago." Because they don't even know that Brantley is Whitfield at this point yet. And so it's just, I don't know. I
I,
like
lo-
that. You're right. The party scene was very good. It was funny, especially later on when they're all running to each other's rooms, which could have come off as really silly. I mean, and it kind of was silly, but it wasn't stupid.
but it was also believable because of how
Yes.
big that house is. So
Yeah.
it's easy to get lost inside a house that big.
Yes. And the
And so
music that they played with it was funny.
which was using the "Oh Yeah" song all over
Yes,
again.
exactly. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
mean, it
someone's
was
gonna get
funny.
lucky, right?
Yeah.
Like, that song was also played in. I want to say Uncle Buck though too, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on
Gosh,
that.
I can't remember. It's been a really long time since I've seen Uncle Buck too, so I can't remember, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it seems like that was something that was used more than just for Ferris Bueller, so
But all in all, I think that this movie is fantastic the way it is. I mean, you can't go wrong with Michael J. Fox. You can't go wrong with his wittiness. You can't go wrong with the comedy aspect of it. Then the whole entire aspect of the business side of things,
yeah.
stuff like that too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it held up really, really well for, for being I mean, geez, 35 years old. It's a long time, 40 years old. I think that it wasn't as filled with sort of sexism and misogyny that you see in a lot of 80s comedies. And that's kind of what I really liked about it. Obviously, there's some weird things like with Aunt Vera and, all the affairs and all that stuff, which actually the affairs probably weren't that weird. They just were pretty present in this movie. So I think it just held up really well. I just think the jokes were still on point. The music is still good. I just really enjoyed the whole thing from beginning to end.
Same here. It just brings me back some memories of just watching this and experiencing in it, and also to make sure it look like that it's actually fun to work at a job like that when it really isn't.
Yeah, right?
Uh,
When it probably was a lot more boring.
right?
Yeah.
Obviously, what makes you want to do this? Oh, I saw a secret of my success.
He did it. He saved an entire company on Wall Street. Why can't I? I think we all want to do that.
So I think that's everything that I had wanted to cover as far as this movie goes. It's only clocks in like an hour and some more minutes, so really there's not really much to actually go on other than that though. So if you guys haven't seen it, you guys can actually watch this movie on YouTube. You can rent it for like for $4, which is what I did, which is
Yeah.
not bad.
Yeah. And I think it's the same on Amazon Prime, but on IMDb it actually said free on Stars, but I don't have Stars, so I think I just rented it.
Yeah, I do have stars, but I don't have like the app itself.
Oh, Yeah, I don't
I'm like,
even
you know what? I have plenty of apps on my phone. I don't need to have extra. So I'm like, yeah, I'm
tell
just
me
gonna go
about
ahead
it.
and download this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's sort of like one of the things about like doing movie reviews, right? You got at some point you have to say no more apps.
Exactly. It's always saturated with apps as it is.
Right.
But anyways, that's gonna be it as far as the show goes. And I do appreciate you, Beth, for being on here and
John, thanks
reviewing
for
this
having
movie.
me. You know I love to come on and talk about movies with you. It's always fun.
It always is. And I'm gonna have you on again sometime in the future to do some
Love
of these
to.
Holy Shorts as well. So
Would love to. I love to. We had such a good time reviewing. And then one of the ones we reviewed won an Oscar. Yay!
right, and that was something that really pleased me to know that we were responsible in a sense that we helped this filmmaker win his Academy Award, his for his
I
direct.
just loved talking about that film so much. I mean, I did, and it was a great film, and it was I was so appreciative that you asked me to be on, especially for that one. But I was so happy when it won. I was like,
Too.
reviewed that film.
I was too. I was fanboying over that. In case anybody's wondering, it's called The Long Goodbye and it's Reza Mid. And you can actually check that out for free on YouTube. And I
Yeah,
strongly recommend that you guys download the soundtrack to it as well.
yeah, do
Because he is
that.
a
And
rapper.
it is, and the movie is like based on one of his songs, and it's a beautiful movie. It's symbolic. It's a great movie, and it deserved to win the Oscar for a short
Most
film.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, guys, don't forget to give Beth a goog over at Made for TV Movie Podcast. Her information is going to be listed in the below in the.
Oh no, he's going to list it below in the comments. So come and check me out. You can also get me hashtag MFTVMC podcast. Danny's back to say goodbye.
And
And then we lost him again. I'll have to say goodbye for both of us, won't I?
thank you, Beth. We're going to go on ahead and end it now. And
Bye.
goodbye.